Hi all and welcome to part 2 of my, well basically I'm going to give you a couple of little updates on the TINU USB creator, and we're going to talk a little bit about graphics cards and your EFI folder for your Hackintosh. So first things first, I've managed to get an update of the TINU installer off the guy who creates this. It is a beta version, it's not available for everybody. So I'll just quickly click on it and show you the new little interface here. So we now have Efi Mounter, so we can mount the EFI partition on our drives, which is a really good piece of software because it means you don't have to use Clover Configurator to do it, which that's great. I will just click on it, but I'm not going to mount anything, but I'll show you. I'll mount my partition on my OS X install drive. I won't do it on the USB stick because I'm just going to create a installer in a minute. So if I now put in my password, we'll just quit that out, and if I go and have a look now, this is my EFI partition on my Mac OS X drive. It's the one that it's using now to boot. Anyway, that's great. I'll just eject that off. So what we're going to do is quickly create bootable USB installer. We need a thumb drive and an OS X installer. I'm going to go through really quick because I've already done this in the previous video. We'll select the USB stick, 8 gig or bigger. We don't have to format it. This will do it for us. We'll select the OS X Mojave application, which is OS X 10. Let's have a quick look. There, it's the latest version, so we can use that. We'll hit next. Now, yes, I understand it'll create the USB stick, but I want to show you a couple of little fixes. What's gone on in the, well, one little fix in particular, which makes a huge difference, is in the previous video, if you remember, when we selected the install Clover EFI folder, the guy has named it experimental as well. Well, it seems to work, so it works for me. So if I now choose the folder, go to my desktop, and this is where my EFI folder, my backup of my EFI folder is. So if I select it, don't select in any of the folders, you just want to select the EFI partition. Select open, it's done, yes, I understand. It's going to ask for the password any minute now, put it in, bang, you're done. Once that's done now, it will put my EFI folder, it will mount the EFI partition and put the EFI folder there, what I've just told it to put on. It will then unmount the partition, and absolutely what a stunning piece of software. That's what we want, and it'll be vanilla. Basically, it's not done any modifications to any of your OS X installation files. I think Unibeast does. Now, I'm not slagging Unibeast off. I'm just saying it's still another way of creating an installer, but it does do things under the hood that you don't know what it's doing. At least with this, it doesn't do anything to the installation files, and you just use Clover as your bootloader as the way to boot your hack. Anyway, without further ado, we're also going to need Clover Configurator. We always want to have that piece of software when we're running a Hackintosh because it's handy for editing the config.p list more than anything. It used to be handy as well, I'll just open it up, for mounting the EFI partition, but as this guy has so kindly give us an EFI mounter in his software, then really we don't need to use it for that purpose. But there you go. So that's why we want Clover Configurator, so that it can edit our config.p list. We also could do with a copy of your EFI folder, which is here. That's a copy of it, which we will when it's finished, the installer. We won't put it on the EFI partition because the installer's already done that for us. We'll put it on the root here, so there's a copy of it. So if we modify anything or mess about with anything and our Hackintosh won't boot, we can just replace it with this one, the EFI folder, and boom, we're good to go. We can reboot back up again. What I mean, what I'll show you in the USB, well no, hang on, I'll just show, let me just mount my, I'll show you what I mean, because it's quite handy to know this if you're going to use a Hackintosh. So we're going to mount the recovery partition, not recovery, I'm going to mount the EFI partition on my Hackintosh. This is actually the one that's in use now. Forget the USB sticks, no what to do with that anymore. That's just creating down here. So if we have a look in my EFI folder, and we look here, I'll go in my drivers folder. This is the drivers that I'm using to boot my Hackintosh. I don't quite know if it needs every one of these drivers. I don't think it needs this, if I'm honest, and it definitely needs the Aptio fix. I don't think it needs some of these drivers, but it doesn't. I have deleted them and booted my Hackintosh back up, and it works, but it didn't do anything or not do anything. So I thought, well, don't mess about with it. That's pretty much what is recommended for my CPU, for my motherboard. So when you're looking for your hardware for your Hackintosh, don't just buy anything. I mean, I've always used Gigabyte boards. I've found out that Gigabyte boards are one of the easiest used boards to use for Hackintosh. Now, I'm not saying other boards don't work, but I've always had Gigabyte. I've always used Gigabyte, and they've always been absolutely spot on. Get one with a UEFI BIOS, get an Intel CPU. Graphics cards, definitely, if you want the best Hackintosh, the fastest Hackintosh, the fastest performance for OS X itself, you want to use a Radeon card. Now, I will say, I'm going to be honest, years ago, well, not even years ago really, more or less towards the back of High Sierra, I always ran NVIDIA because I struggled to get Radeon working. It was too complicated, putting in all these frame buffers and all that lot. But since the latest version of High Sierra and OS X Mojave, to get the Radeon graphics cards working, especially the RX 560, which is a budget graphics card but works if you're not an intense Final Cut user, but you do have a little play around here and there, then you can use the RX 560 at just over £100. That's brand new. You might pick one up pre-owned cheaper, but I'd buy one brand new, and that'll do you pretty darn good. But if you're really high end and you do a lot of video editing like I do, then you really want like something like the RX 580, something like that. I've got the, I don't know which one it is, but it works absolutely spot on, and it works out of the box. Like I say, the two keks that I do use, which give it a bit of a helping hand, I think, are the, I'll just go in here now, are the whatevergreen.kext and the lilu.kext. Now, I've led to believe that it will work without them, and I did try it once without them, and I got little glitches here and there, but it did work. I recommend you just put them in anyway, because they also help to these two keks with your Intel QuickSync. So don't forget, I'd recommend you put these two in. You don't need the, is it Shiki or something like that? You don't need that anymore. You don't even need the Intel Graphics Fixup.kext, to be honest. I'm going to delete it soon, but definitely use the fake SMC keks for sure, and the whatever green and the Lilu, and your 560 should work great, and you should be able to open MacX Video Converter and check that your QuickSync is working here. It'll only work for so long, this, so you get a trial of it, but it's enough for you to be able to click on this here, and it says hardware encoding supported, yes. Make sure, I've said it before in the previous video, I know I'm going over it again, but enable Intel QuickSync. Otherwise, you're buying a Lamborghini and you're basically saying, can you govern the engine 50% please, because it's too powerful. And you just don't want to do that. Why on earth would you want to do that? Oh, right, this is my USB stick. Press 1. Can you see now it's just mounted the EFI partition? Now it's going to put me my EFI folder on. Then it's going to dismount it. Then it's going to put me my Mojave icon. Anyway, I'm just going to show you my config.p list. I'll open it on my EFI partition. This is not the USB. I'm doing it from my Macintosh HDD. But to be fair, it would work with either. But anyway, let's and get that. Yeah, that's my one on my Macintosh. Yeah. So if EFI Clover, and I got my config. Now this, guys, this config.p list, don't be emailing me asking me for it, because it's not going to work for your system. This is for my RX 580. It's for my Intel QuickSync. So you might better use a couple of settings that I've used, and it's for the Intel let's just have a look. Just so you can see, it's for the 4790K CPU, it's for the Radeon RX 580 graphics card. And I'm using, of course, the iMac 27-inch late 2013 system. I think it's 14.2 system definition. That's quite important as well. So make sure you do your homework before you buy your board. Your CPU, most Intel CPUs work. Like I say, we've just discussed graphics card. You can use Nvidia if you want. A lot of the new Nvidia graphics cards, not the latest generation, but the 980 Ti, the 1080 Ti, they all work. But like I say, they don't work as good in Final Cut. But yeah, if you want to get one. Yes, you will open benchmarks in OS X and it'll perform better, but it won't perform better when you're using like Final Cut and stuff like that. So it's up to you, because OS X isn't a gaming platform anyway. But you might want to have OS X just to have OS X, and you might be a gamer and you might have Windows on the other drive, so you might be better off with a Nvidia card in that case. But if you're going to be a Final Cut user, then definitely you're going to live in OS X, definitely get an AMD. Anyway, so I'm just going to go to the graphics tab just to show you this. In here I've got the Inject Intel button ticked, and I've also got my IG platform ID ticked. Basically this is the ID for my CPU to be recognised as an Intel HD 4600, and that's what helps me Intel QuickSync to work. I did tell you, when I used to be in, I think I got it working in the latest High Sierra. I never had it working before in my life. And then when I managed to get it working, and it did work, wow, I'd never go back now. But these are what I've got for my CPU. I'm not saying your CPU will definitely be a different platform ID, but you probably find out that I've heard, I don't know how true it is, with the latest Mojave and the latest Clover and the latest whatevergreen.kext and the latest lelu.kext, that I don't even need these enabled. I could delete that and take that off. I'm not gonna, because I've not got an issue with the way it works, so there's just no need for me. But I've heard I don't need that. So if you're on the latest Mojave, you might want to just try the lelu.kext, the whatevergreen.kext, and check that your Intel QuickSync. If it's not working, then maybe tick Inject Intel and find out your platform ID for your CPU on the internet. They're all there, they're dead easy to find, and then put that in that little box and you'll probably find out. You'll basically need to have your onboard graphics enabled too, and then you'll probably find out it works, and then you can start using Final Cut and turning it on and off in your BIOS, disabling your graphics and re-enabling it, and you'll go, wow, my computer's like supercomputer, and with it off it's not nowhere near as good. Now you won't notice no difference in just using OS X and stuff like that. You will only notice the difference in Final Cut and things that use Intel QuickSync, like MacX Video Converter. Just before I go, I will have a look on the install Mac OS X. It's now finished. We've got the TINU, not TNU, TINU on the root of the USB stick. And we would also, I'd recommend you put Clover there. You would also put a copy of your EFI partition there, but I'm gonna leave it on that folder. I know that's a backup then, so if I modify my boot drive's EFI folder in any shape or form, or put a new version of Clover on it and it crashes, I know I can go back to this USB stick, right click, copy that, and go and replace it on wherever I want to replace it, and it'll go back to before I pissed around with it and touched it, and it'll work fantastic. Anyway, I'll see you in part 3 of this video, and I'll show you some proper tests on how my Hackintosh performs. If you've got any questions, please comment and subscribe, and I'll try to do my best for you. Thanks for watching.